they got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS, and then they shoot you with it.
Oh, so that seems bad.
That's a slow death.
Yeah.
Eazy-E thing.
But when Eazy-E said in the papers that me and the chairman of Sony, Tommy Mottola, was in the room with bats and pipes, he's obviously...
Eric Wright, Eazy-E, filed a RICO lawsuit against them. It was the first time RICO had been used in the music business.
So right now we're getting everything back together and we finna come out, fully loaded.
The RICO charge is a rapper's worst nightmare. Drake and Meek Mill even had a song about it, warning the rap world not to play with those RICO charges. But what was the very first RICO case to hit the hip-hop world? It involved none other than Suge Knight and Eazy-E, who were some of the biggest names in hip-hop at the time. The Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organization is a federal law in the United States that provides penalties for organized crimes. The law basically provides for the charges of not just an individual, but also a group of individuals who might have benefited from a crime by being part of a criminal organization. And the charges are scary, with nothing less than 20 years to a lifetime in prison, and that's just for one charge. It was aimed at the mafia and mob bosses, but quickly found its way into the center of hip-hop.
You need two predicate acts in the RICO Act. One has to be within the 5-year statute of limitations. The other act could be something that you did 30 years ago that you got convicted of, that you did your time for.
Hip-hop and gang culture have always been brothers, which is not surprising, as many of our favorite rappers represent one gang or another. This is quite understandable, as so many rappers come from gang-infiltrated cities, but singing and rapping about their involvement does nothing but get them in trouble with the feds. Eazy-E. Eazy-E was born Eric Lynn Wright and raised by a postal worker and a grade school administrator in Compton, California, a city in Los Angeles that was popular for high crime rates and gang culture. He dropped out of high school in 10th grade to sell drugs with his cousin, not only to support himself and raise money, but also to survive the chaos of its Compton streets. Compton was a dangerous place to be in the 1980s.
So this is Compton, man. It's like right down this way right here is my neighborhood, the street.
It was home to the struggling lower class, and as a result, crime, riots, and gang violence began to seep in, specifically between the Crips and the Bloods. To survive, you had to either play a role or become a victim. You had to be a drug dealer, an athlete, a thug, or a gangster.
I heard the E was either Kelly Park or Neighborhood. Which one was E affiliated with?
That's a good question, because back in the days, you feel what I'm saying? Like where we stay at, we in basically both areas. And back in that time, it was more unity. Nah, he was from Park, you the Park. Nah, your daddy was OG from neighborhood. Like, I'm from neighborhood. So,
everybody want to claim him.
Your daddy was, our OG and all that and the other. And when it comes down to it, you just understand that it was more unity.
Eazy was a member of the Kelly Parker Compton Crips. His status as a dope dealer and thug was a role that was widely understood on the streets. It was like personal armor. It gave him some sort of immunity and protection in the sense that people hesitated to mess with him. And also, certain privileges and respect were reserved for him. Eazy was very discreet about his experiences as a drug dealer, but the reputation he acquired from his time on the streets would last well into his career as a rapper. By the age of 22, he had made a decent amount of money from dealing dope. However, when his cousin was shot and killed, he decided to switch lanes. He started making music in a studio he set up in the garage of his parents' house. He connected with Jerry Heller, and the two set the foundation for Ruthless Records, with Eazy as the rap talent and Heller as his manager. Eazy became famous for his lyrics, which centered around the cultures and values of street hustlers and gang members, a culture that was popular and highly infiltrated at the time. His lyrics, delivery style, and unique vocals quickly found the hearts of loyal fans, who coined him the godfather of gangster rap.
Basically, gangster rap, I guess it's like telling the real and not holding back, giving up, the reality from the street point of view. And like by us being from the streets, we know how to report it. I tell, basically what's going on.
Suge Knight. Marion Hugh Knight Jr. was influential in the commercial rise of gangster rap. He was a record executive and co-founder of Death Row Records, which signed legendary acts like Dr. Dre, Tupac, and Snoop. However, his label rapidly declined while allegations mounted on him for the use of intimidation, violence, and employing gang members in his business dealings. He was constantly convicted for assault and crimes associated with violence. Eazy-E versus Suge Knight. Eazy had a short solo career and frequent collaborations with Dr. Dre and Ice Cube before finally joining forces with the producer and lyricist to create N.W.A, Niggas with Attitudes. They were immediately famous for the release of their debut album, Straight Outta Compton, which still ranked as one of the best and most influential albums ever. After the release of their second studio album, Niggas for Life, in 1991, the group began to come apart due to disputes over money and royalties. In an interview, Dr. Dre confirmed that there had already been friction among the members of the group. He claimed that this friction began when Jerry Heller became their manager. He said that the manager caused the divide by focusing only on Eazy-E and failing to take care of the other members of the group. He also said they began to get suspicious about the money flow between the manager and Eazy-E.
But in the meantime, he might rob you. And that's a reality. That's a reality that white America has to live with. That's a reality that kids in Boise, Idaho are just beginning to understand.
It's so controversial that some record companies are putting out 2 versions of gangsta music videos.
This suspicion began to brew distrust between the rappers, and eventually they could no longer work together. This led to Dr. Dre requesting for a release from the record label. RICO. In the book Ruthless, the memoir, written by the manager of Ruthless Records, Jerry Heller, he claimed that Knight and 2 other guys stormed the studio and threatened the rapper with a baseball bat and lead pipes to enforce the release of Dr. Dre and another rapper D.O.C. from Ruthless Records so they could sign with Knight's Death Row Records. It was also alleged that Suge's threats ranged from kidnapping Heller and keeping him in the back of a truck to threatening the manager with his mother's address. Eazy was eventually forced to sign them off. These events finally disbanded N.W.A. and destroyed the relationship between Eazy, Dr. Dre, and D.O.C. In 1992, Eazy-E filed a lawsuit against Sony Music, Death Row Records, Solar Records, and others, alleging various incidents of racketeering, extortion, and money laundering in connection with the contractual dispute between Ruthless and Sony Music. The suit also claimed violations of the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act.
RICO is a racketeering lawsuit. It's the thing that they use to get the mafia, and they can't get the mafia leaders on anything else. Eazy's lawsuit contended that there was money laundering, extortion, threats, and violent intimidation.
Heller also claimed that Eazy wanted to kill Suge earlier on because he seen him as a threat. Heller said he regretted talking him out of killing Suge. In an interview following the release of his memoir, Heller said that he stopped him because he didn't want to compromise the success of their startup record label. But as Eazy foretold, Suge turned out to be one of the worst humans on the planet. However, Dre said he and the godfather of gangster rap had reconciled on a phone call a few weeks before Eazy was hospitalized, and that the two had talked about putting the group back together. The death of Eazy-E.
Rap singer Eazy-E has lost his battle with AIDS just 10 days after revealing that he had the disease.
Eazy-E has died in Los Angeles after a battle with AIDS.
On March 26, 1995, Eazy died from AIDS-induced pneumonia that was diagnosed a few weeks after a feud with Suge Knight at Galaxy Studios, where Eazy recorded Niggas for Life. That was when the conspiracy started. No one could come to terms with how quickly his health had deteriorated. He died just a month after being diagnosed with the virus, coupled with the previous struggle with asthma and pneumonia. As fans tried to wrap their heads around the loss of the godfather of gangster rap, they couldn't help but wonder how Eazy-E's condition went south so fast. But according to HIV.gov, people with HIV can have a healthy look and feel just fine without showing any symptoms. After the early stage of HIV infection, it goes into what they call the clinical latency stage, which just means the virus hangs out in the shadows, not attacking your body yet. But eventually, HIV pulls a sneaky move and weakens the immune system. And when the symptoms finally kick in, the disease has upgraded to the AIDS level. Now, the craziest part is that even during his final months, Eazy-E's buddies from Bone Thugs and Harmony didn't notice any crazy changes in his appearance or behavior. According to Crazy Bone, he looked regular, still had his weight, and had that cocky attitude intact. Lazy Bone even described him as a little tank.
Lil Eazy feels that Eazy didn't really die of AIDS. He feels that there was some sort of foul play, like he was injected with something or something like that.
Just rationally thinking, some had to go on.
Years later, Eazy's son, famously known as Young Eazy, started the conspiracy that Suge Knight killed his father with an HIV-infected blood syringe. This speculation of foul play and Eazy-E contracting AIDS started when Suge said in a Jimmy Kimmel Live interview that there were other ways to kill than shooting with a gun, which could lead to a jail sentence. In his words, they get blood from someone with AIDS and shoot the victim with it. That's a slow death. His son claimed that Eazy didn't get sick until the studio incident and used Suge's interview with Jimmy Kimmel as evidence to support his claim. The conspiracy surrounding Eazy's death is a conspiracy that may never die. The depth of his conspiracy led to a movie produced by previous pioneer members of N.W.A, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, Eazy-E's widow, Tamika Woods Wright, and other producers and directors, including director Felix Gary Gray. The movie was made in honor of Eazy-E. It was named after the group's debut album, straight out of Compton. The movie did a lot to shed little light on the events surrounding Eazy's death. But regardless, just like the conspiracy surrounding Tupac and Biggie's deaths, the real reason for Eazy's contraction of AIDS and his eventual death remains a mystery. FBI conspiracy theory. Now, let's talk about some juicy conspiracy theories. Brace yourselves. Back in 2011, some FBI documents surfaced linking Eazy-E and Tupac Shakur to an extortion plot by the Jewish Defense League. They were apparently shaking down rap stars with death threats and offering protection for a fee, which was really shady business. The twist here is that the documents suggested that Eazy-E might have fallen victim to this extortion scheme before his passing. With Eazy-E gone, everyone was wondering about the gold mine hidden in his musical vaults. You know, like how Tupac albums kept hitting the charts even after his passing. That stuff's like treasure for the record labels.
And he's like, man, he's saying like, man, I'm not feeling that good. I got like a chest congestion, like a thing. He told me, he's like, man, I got some congestion in my chest. It's turning into like bronchitis or something. Right? Wow. So that was the stint to the hospital. He never came out. They gave him tainted needles with acupuncture needles that tainted him and gave it to him.
In a documentary interview, rap pioneer Frost spilled some serious tea about Eazy-E's death. Frost claims that Eazy-E was intentionally infected with tainted acupuncture needles, implicating an unknown individual as the alleged murderer. He goes on to suggest that this person is often referred to as the devil in the rap community. The truth behind Eazy-E's death is still a bit hazy. Some folks close to him can't accept that his wild lifestyle and sexual escapades might have led to his quick decline. Let us know if you think Suge is responsible for the death of Eazy-E, or if things were blown out of proportion because of what was said on Kimmel. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. We got videos coming weekly. Thanks for watching, y'all. Stay blessed.